Let's just dive right in. Today, we're going to tackle a topic that really pushes the boundaries of how we think about who we are. It's a concept that challenges some of our most basic ideas about identity, about history, and, where we belong. So let's start with the big question, the one that this entire conversation really spins around. Can you actually choose your race? I mean, is the identity you were assigned at birth something you can change, or is it just a fixed, unchangeable part of you? The answer, as you're about to see, is, wow, it's incredibly complex.
And listen, this isn't just some theoretical classroom debate. This is happening in the real world. Take Martina Big. She's a white German model who has gone through some really extensive cosmetic procedures. We're talking skin darkening injections, and she now identifies as a Black woman. Her journey, and this quote about her roots getting bigger, it just throws the whole debate into sharp relief. It makes us ask, what really makes an identity authentic?
So, to get our heads around this, here's the plan. First, we'll map out this new identity frontier. Then, we'll look at the two big sides of the argument. First, the case for choice and self-identification, and then the case for legacy and lived experience. And finally, we're going to look at how technology might just redraw all of these lines completely. Okay, so first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. What exactly do we mean when we use a word like transracialism? The main idea we're wrestling with here is transracialism. And put simply, it's when a person's internal feeling of what race they are doesn't match up with the race society gave them at birth. Now, this is totally different from transracial adoption. That's about a child being raised by parents of another race. What we're talking about here is a claim to identity itself. All right, let's explore the first side of this whole debate. The people who support the idea of transracialism, well, they build their argument on a really powerful and modern idea. That at the end of the day, your identity is a matter of personal choice and how you feel inside. The entire argument for choosing your own race really hangs on this one foundational concept, the idea that race is a social construct. What does that mean? It means race isn't some fixed biological fact that's just part of nature. Nope, it's a system of categories that we, as humans, invented, and its meaning changes all the time depending on where and when you live. And the hard science on this? It's pretty stunning. The Human Genome Project found something that completely upended the old ideas about race. Every single human being on this planet is 99.9% genetically identical. That tiny little 0.1% accounts for all the amazing variation we see? Sure, but the idea of separate, distinct biological races, it just doesn't hold up under the microscope.
And you can literally see how the idea of race was invented over time. In the 1700s, it just started as a way to classify people. By the 1800s, it turned into scientific racism, a twisted tool used to justify things like colonialism and slavery. I mean, think about it. As late as 1930, the US Census was using the political one-drop rule. It really wasn't until the 1970s that the scientific community started to seriously push back.
So all of that leads proponents to make a really key comparison. Our society is, more and more, accepting that when it comes to gender, it's a person's internal sense of self that's valid, not the sex they were assigned at birth. So they ask a pretty direct question. If self-identification is the gold standard for gender, why shouldn't it be for race? But okay, that's only one side of the coin. Let's flip it over. This is the case for legacy, and it explains why the idea of transracialism gets such intense criticism and is often seen as, frankly, deeply problematic.
The pushback against transracialism is fierce, and it's built on several core arguments. Critics say it completely trivializes the very real trauma and oppression that gets passed down from one generation to the next. They see it as an exercise of white privilege, the ability to just try on an identity without ever having to live with its consequences. They also call it out as cultural appropriation, say it reinforces harmful stereotypes, and worry it could weaken the solidarity needed to fight for civil rights.
This quote really gets right to the heart of the counter-argument. It's like saying, okay, sure, race is a social construct, but it's a construct with brutal real-world power. It's an identity that's often forced on people, and it comes with a whole history of systemic pain that you can't just, opt into or out of. So, that big question. Why is the comparison to transgender identity so often rejected? Well, critics point to these key distinctions.
Gender identity is seen as an individual's sense of self versus society's norms. But racial identity, that's tied to this massive history of oppression, slavery, and colonialism. There are established, though often very difficult, pathways for gender transition. For race, there's nothing like that. And maybe the biggest point, racial boundaries are often closely policed precisely because of their connection to the fight for civil rights and justice.
Okay, so we've seen the arguments clashing, but this entire debate might be about to get completely scrambled by something else, something outside of philosophy or sociology. I'm talking about technology. It's moving so fast, and it might just redraw the very lines of what identity even means. Just look at this progression. Step 1 is already here. We have people using cosmetic surgery to change their appearance to look like another race. But what happens at step 2? Technologies like CRISPR could, theoretically, let us edit the very genes connected to things like skin color or hair texture. And then there's step 3, the really wild stuff, where transhumanists imagine a future where we have total control over our physical bodies.
And once you have that kind of technological power, the conversation explodes way beyond personal choice. It just opens a Pandora's box of huge ethical questions we're going to have to face. Debates over designer babies, the terrifying shadow of eugenics, and what it even means to be human when our own biology becomes just another thing we can engineer.
So in the end, this whole debate over transracial identity, it might just be the first tremor before a much larger earthquake hits our understanding of who we are. So I'll leave you with this to think about. As technology keeps blurring the lines of biology, and as our society keeps redefining the rules of identity, what is it going to mean to be you?